They say you never know what you have until it's gone. In my case, what I had was a 17-pound orange tabby named Charlie, and what was gone was my ability to live independently without him. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how my family's ignorance nearly cost me my life. I was diagnosed with epilepsy when I was 12. By 16, the seizures were mostly under control with medication, but the fear never went away. The constant worry about when the next one might hit, whether I'd be somewhere safe or alone in a dangerous situation. That's when Charlie found me. I say he found me because that's exactly what happened. I was volunteering at the local animal shelter, cleaning cages and socializing cats, one of the few activities my parents still allowed me to do independently. This massive orange cat, who had been surrendered because he was too clingy, literally broke out of his cage to follow me around. The shelter staff were amazed. He's never shown interest in anyone before, they said. Charlie had been there for months, ignored by potential adopters who found him too large, too needy, too intense. But something about me caught his attention. What happened next changed my life. I was organizing supplies in the storage room when I felt it, the familiar aura that preceded a seizure. Before I could call for help, Charlie, who had somehow gotten into the room with me, started pawing at my legs and making strange vocalizations I'd never heard from a cat before. His behavior was so unusual that it snapped me out of the pre-seizure daze long enough to sit down safely. Moments later, the seizure hit. When I came to, Charlie was lying across my chest, purring loudly, his weight providing comforting pressure that helped ground me. The shelter's director, Ms. Rodriguez, had witnessed the whole thing. "That cat," she said firmly, "is going home with you." My parents were skeptical. Mom worried about cat hair and allergens. Dad complained about the cost of food and veterinary care for such a large cat. But Ms. Rodriguez was persuasive, explaining how some cats have natural abilities to detect seizures. He could be trained as a proper therapy animal, she suggested. There are programs. That's how Charlie became my unofficial seizure alert cat. We enrolled in training programs together, learning how to refine his natural abilities. He'd already had the instinct to detect the chemical changes that preceded my seizures. We just had to establish clear alert behaviors and responses. Within 6 months, Charlie could reliably alert me about 20 minutes before a seizure. He developed different signals for different situations, pawing at my leg when we were alone, vocalizing loudly in public, even learning to press the emergency alert button we installed in my room. My neurologist was fascinated. She'd heard of seizure alert dogs but never cats. Charlie became a regular topic at medical conferences, and researchers started studying him to understand how he detected the seizures. He was even featured in a medical journal. For 3 years, Charlie was my constant companion. He went everywhere with me: school, work, social events. His therapy animal vest became a familiar sight around town. More importantly, I hadn't had a single injury from a seizure since he came into my life. His early warnings meant I could always get to a safe place in time. But my family never really understood. They saw the superficial benefits: fewer emergency room visits, more independence for me. But they didn't grasp what Charlie actually did for me. "It's just a cat," Mom would say when I tried to explain his training. "Don't get too attached." Dad was more blunt. "You're using this animal as a crutch. You need to learn to manage your condition without depending on a pet." My younger sister, Amy, was the worst. She resented the attention Charlie got, the special accommodations made for him. "It's embarrassing," she'd complain. "Everyone at school talks about my sister with the weird fat cat." Only my older brother, Michael, seemed to understand. He was away at medical school, but he called regularly to check on us and was always amazed by Charlie's abilities. "What he does isn't just impressive," Michael would say. "It's life-saving. Don't let anyone tell you different." I should have known something was wrong when Mom started asking about my work schedule at the library. She never showed interest in my part-time job before. But I was distracted. It was finals week at college and I was focused on studying. That Tuesday morning, I left for my early shift feeling slightly off. Charlie was more clingy than usual, which should have been a warning sign, but I attributed it to the stress of finals. Mom insisted she take care of him while I was gone. "You focus on work," she said. "Charlie will be fine." I believed her. That was my first mistake. The second mistake was ignoring the dozen missed calls from Michael when I checked my phone on break. When I finally called him back, his voice was urgent. "Sarah, where's Charlie?" At home with Mom, why? No, he's not. Mom called me. Sarah, they gave him away. The world tilted sideways. What? They took him to a shelter 2 hours away, said it was for your own good, that you needed to learn independence. I've been trying to reach you. I don't remember dropping the phone. I don't remember my supervisor finding me hyperventilating in the break room. I don't remember much of anything until I woke up in the emergency room with a concussion and various injuries. I'd had a massive seizure, falling and hitting my head on the corner of a desk. Without Charlie's warning, without time to get to safety, I'd been completely vulnerable. Mom and Dad were there when I woke up, their faces pale with worry. Emmy hung back by the door, for once not making snide comments. Oh honey, Mom started, reaching for my hand. We were so worried. I pulled away. Where's Charlie? Sarah, try to understand, Dad said. We did this for you. You can't rely on a cat forever. Where is he? They exchanged glances. We took him to New Hope Shelter in Riverside, Mom admitted. But sweetheart, this proves our point. You had a seizure and survived. You don't need. I had a seizure and ended up in the hospital. I cut her off. Because you took away my medical alert animal. You understand what you've done. The doctor chose that moment to enter, clipboard in hand. Ah, good, you're awake. Can someone explain why a patient with documented severe epilepsy was without their registered therapy animal? The silence in the room was deafening. My parents gave him away, I said clearly, without my knowledge or consent. The doctor's expression darkened. I see. And are you aware that interfering with a registered therapy animal is legally comparable to tampering with medical equipment? Mom's face went white. But it's just a cat. A cat that was documented in Ms. Roberts' medical records as a vital part of her seizure management plan. A cat that had prevented exactly this type of incident for 3 years. The doctor turned to me. I'm calling your neurologist. We'll need to document this interference with your medical care. My phone buzzed. Michael had finally reached the shelter. They still have him, he texted. I'm on my way there now. Hang on, sis. I looked at my parents, seeing them clearly for the first time. They weren't malicious people, just catastrophically ignorant. They genuinely thought they were helping me by forcing independence. They couldn't comprehend that Charlie wasn't just a pet. He was my lifeline. Get out, I said quietly. Sarah, please. Mom started crying. Get out. Michael is getting Charlie. When we come home, you better be gone. This is our house, Dad protested. And I'm your daughter, but that didn't stop you from risking my life today. Get out. They left, Amy trailing behind them like a shadow. The doctor stayed, checking my vitals and asking about Charlie's usual alert behaviors. We should document his capabilities properly this time, she said. Make sure this can't happen again. I nodded, too tired to speak. My head throbbed where I'd hit it, and the familiar post-seizure exhaustion was setting in. My phone buzzed again. A photo from Michael. Charlie in his carrier, looking anxious but safe. On our way back, the message read. He started mewing the moment he saw your picture. I clutched the phone, letting tears fall finally. Charlie was coming home. We would get through this. But first, there would be consequences. My parents needed to understand exactly what their actions had cost, not just in medical bills, but in trust, in family bonds, in basic human decency. They thought Charlie was just a cat. They were about to learn how wrong they were, and the lesson would be expensive. The hospital bills started arriving 3 days after Charlie came home. Each envelope felt like a paper missile detailing exactly what my parents' ignorance had cost. Emergency room visit, $8,500. CT scan, $3,200. Neurological consultation, $1,200. Monitoring and observation, $4,800. And that was just the beginning. Charlie hadn't left my side since Michael brought him back. He was even more attentive than before, as if he understood how close we'd come to permanent separation. The shelter staff said he had refused to eat during his brief stay there, yelling constantly until Michael arrived with my photo. My neurologist, Dr. Chen, was furious when she heard what happened. She immediately filed paperwork to register Charlie as an official medical alert animal, with legal protections equivalent to those of service dogs. This should have been done years ago, she admitted. We documented his abilities in medical journals but never formalized his status. That changes now. The morning my parents tried to return home, they found the locks changed and a legal notice taped to the door. My father's name was still on the deed, but Dr. Chen had helped me file for emergency medical tenancy protection, a little-known law that prevents caregivers from removing medical equipment or support from a dependent's residence. A cat isn't medical equipment, Dad shouted through the door. I watched through the security camera as Michael, who had taken emergency leave from medical school to help me, handed them another stack of papers. "You're right," he said coldly. "Charlie is classified as a medical alert animal, and your interference with his duties resulted in documented harm to a dependent with a recognized disability. Here are the hospital bills. Since you chose to remove medical support without consulting Sarah's doctors, insurance is denying coverage." Mom started crying again, her default response lately. "We can't afford this. We were trying to help." "You should have thought about that before giving away a registered therapy animal," Michael replied. "Don't worry, the lawyers say you can set up a payment plan." The total came to $175,000, including emergency care, follow-up treatments, and the neurological testing required after a severe seizure. The insurance company's denial letter was explicit. Removal of a documented medical alert animal constituted voluntary risk-taking, voiding coverage for resulting injuries. My parents tried to argue, of course. They hired a lawyer who specialized in medical insurance claims. But every argument they made only dug them deeper. The cat wasn't officially registered. Evidence of Charlie's medical journal documentation and 3 years of seizure prevention was presented. They were acting in their daughter's best interests. Medical records showing the devastating impact of his removal were submitted. It's unreasonable to rely on an animal. Expert testimony about seizure alert animals and their recognized medical status was provided. Finally, their lawyer advised them to stop fighting and start negotiating a payment plan. Amy showed up one afternoon while Michael was at the pharmacy getting my prescriptions refilled. Through the door camera, she looked smaller somehow, less confident. "Sarah, please," she begged. "Mom and Dad might have to sell the house. This isn't fair." I pressed the intercom button. Wasn't fair to give away Charlie either. Actions have consequences, Amy. He's just a stupid cat. At that moment, Charlie started pawing my leg, his seizure alert signal. I pressed my emergency alert button, and Michael, who was just pulling up, ran inside with my rescue medication. 20 minutes later, as I recovered from a mild seizure on the couch with Charlie's comforting weight across my legs, Amy was still outside. She had watched the whole thing through the window. Charlie's alert, Michael's quick response, the prevented emergency. I saw her slide down to sit on the porch steps, head in her hands. When Michael finally opened the door to check on her, she was crying. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I really didn't know what he did." "None of you knew," Michael replied, "because none of you bothered to learn." Charlie's new medical alert animal registration arrived the next day, along with a protective vest that clearly marked him as a service animal. Dr. Chen also arranged for us to visit local hospitals and medical schools, demonstrating his abilities to help educate people about seizure alert animals. My parents made one final attempt at reconciliation, sending a letter through their lawyer. "Dear Sarah, we understand now that we made a terrible mistake. We've started selling things to pay the hospital bills, Dad's car, Mom's jewelry, the vacation house. We know it doesn't make up for what we did, but please understand we thought we were helping. Can we talk about this? Maybe work out a way to move forward as a family? Love, Mom and Dad." I showed the letter to Charlie, who was sprawled across my desk supervising my homework. He blinked his big orange eyes at me, then deliberately knocked the letter into the trash. "But call," I told him, scratching behind his ears. "Some things can't be fixed with just money and apologies." That evening, as I watched Charlie demonstrate his alert behavior for a documentary about medical alert animals, I realized something important. Sometimes the people who claim to love you the most understand you the least. And sometimes a useless shelter cat can teach the world more about loyalty and care than an entire family. The hospital bills would eventually get paid. My parents would learn their lesson the hard way. But Charlie and we had more important work to do, showing the world that love and medical assistance sometimes come in unexpected orange, 17-pound packages. And that's worth more than all the apology letters in the world. 1 year after the incident, Charlie and I sat in a lecture hall at the state medical school, where Michael was now doing his residency. We were guest speakers for a class on alternative medical alert systems. Charlie, wearing his official therapy vest and looking particularly dignified, sat on the demonstration table as students gathered around. As you can see, Michael explained to his colleagues, Charlie can detect seizures approximately 20 minutes before they occur. Today, he'll demonstrate his alert behaviors and monitoring techniques. The transformation in my family's understanding had come too late to save our relationship, but it had sparked something bigger. After our story went viral, other families started coming forward with similar experiences, people whose medical alert animals had been dismissed as just pets until disaster struck. Dr. Chen had turned our case into a landmark study on family interference with medical support animals. The resulting paper, published in several prestigious journals, led to new laws protecting patients' rights to keep their therapy animals regardless of family objections. My parents had finally finished selling off their assets to pay the hospital bills. The vacation house, Dad's vintage car collection, Mom's designer wardrobe, all gone. They even had to downsize to a small apartment. Emmy, surprisingly, had moved out to attend veterinary school, inspired by what she learned about animal-assisted medicine. Charlie remained unimpressed by his growing fame. He cared only about his duties, monitoring my health, providing alerts, and demanding his scheduled treats. Today, though, he was showing off for the medical students, demonstrating how he could detect the subtle chemical changes that preceded a seizure. Currently, Michael said, we're tracking Charlie's accuracy rate at 98.7%. That's higher than most electronic monitoring devices. A student raised her hand. But how do you convince insurance companies to cover a cat as medical equipment? I stepped forward, Charlie immediately moving to my side. You show them the numbers. Before Charlie, I averaged 12 emergency room visits per year from seizure-related injuries. With him, 0. Insurance companies understand cost-benefit analysis. Another student asked about my family's reaction to the legal consequences of their actions. They learned an expensive lesson. I replied, stroking Charlie's head. But the real cost wasn't financial, it was the breakdown of trust. How do you forgive someone for deliberately removing your medical support system? Charlie chose that moment to demonstrate his alerting behavior, pawing at my leg and making his distinctive warning sound. The students watched in amazement as Michael and I moved through our practice response routine, getting me to a safe position, administering preventive medication, Charlie maintaining physical contact throughout. Notice how he adjusts his position to provide pressure therapy, Michael pointed out as Charlie draped himself across my legs. This helps reduce seizure severity and duration. After the demonstration, a young doctor approached us. She was crying quietly. My parents did the same thing, she said. They gave away my alert dog while I was at college. Said I needed to grow up and stop using him as a crutch. I ended up falling down a flight of stairs during a seizure. Now I have permanent spine damage. I hugged her as Charlie pressed against both our legs, his therapy instincts extending to anyone in distress. Are they organizing the support group? He asked hopefully. She meant the organization I'd started, Medical Alert Partners, MAP, an advocacy group for people with therapy and alert animals. We provide legal support, education, and resources to prevent other families from making the same devastating mistakes as mine. First meeting is next month, I confirmed. Charlie's going to be the mascot. Later that evening, as Charlie and I relaxed in our new apartment, purchased with the advance from our book deal, I got an unexpected email from Amy. Sis. Learning about seizure alert animals in vet school. Professor used Charlie as an example today. Didn't realize I was your sister. Felt proud and ashamed at the same time. Mom and Dad finally finished paying off the hospital bills. They're different now. Humbled. Dad volunteers at a service dog training center. Mom's joined a support group for parents of children with epilepsy. I know it's too late to fix what they did, but I thought you should know they're trying to make amends in their own way. Miss you. Amy. Charlie read the email over my shoulder. He was nosy that way, and made a small chirping sound. His way of commenting on things. Yeah, I know, I told him. Too little, too late. But at least some good came from it all. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. News crew wants to interview you and Charlie tomorrow. Story about the new medical alert animal protection law. You up for it? I looked at Charlie, who was already wearing his celebrity expression, the slightly smug look he gets during interviews. Sure, I replied. Charlie's always ready for his close-up. We had turned our trauma into triumph, creating change that would protect other patients and their alert animals. My parents had learned their lesson, but more importantly, the medical community had learned one too. Never underestimate the bond between a patient and their therapy animal. Charlie stretched luxuriously on his custom cat bed, a gift from a pet supply company that wanted him to model their products. Then padded over to do his evening health check. He sniffed me carefully, ensuring there were no concerning chemical changes before settling into his monitoring position. Some people still didn't understand. They saw a fat orange cat in a vest and thought it was cute or funny or attention-seeking. They didn't see the countless nights of training, the precise medical responses, the unwavering dedication. But that was okay. Charlie didn't need their understanding. He just needed to do his job, keeping me safe, proving that sometimes the best medicine comes with whiskers and a purr. And he was worth every hospital bill in the world. 5 years after my family gave away Charlie, we sat in another medical conference, but this time I was the keynote speaker. Charlie, now a distinguished senior therapy cat at 12 years old, wore his custom-made vest with multiple medical service awards pinned to it. The law protecting medical alert animals now bore his name. Charlie's law had been passed in 37 states, making it a criminal offense to interfere with or remove a registered therapy animal from their patient. The penalties included heavy fines and possible jail time. My parents had never fully recovered financially from the hospital bills, but they'd found a new purpose in life. Dad now ran a nonprofit that helped low-income families train and register therapy animals. Mom worked as a counselor for parents of children with epilepsy, using her own mistakes as teaching moments. I still hadn't forgiven them, but I'd learned to appreciate their efforts to prevent others from making the same mistakes. Amy had graduated veterinary school and specialized in working with therapy animals. She sometimes sent articles about new developments in animal-assisted medicine, always including a note about how Charlie had inspired her career change. Michael had become a leading neurologist with a special interest in seizure-alert animals. His research, sparked by Charlie's abilities, had led to breakthroughs in understanding how animals detect pre-seizure chemical changes. As for Charlie and me, we become the faces of medical alert animal advocacy. Our book, The Orange Guardian, had become required reading in many veterinary and medical schools. The documentary about our story had won several awards. But more importantly, we'd helped change how the world viewed therapy animals. They were no longer seen as just pets or emotional support animals, but as sophisticated medical alert systems capable of saving lives. Today's conference was special. We were introducing a new program that would help shelter cats with natural alert abilities get trained and paired with epilepsy patients. We called it Charlie's Champions. As I took the podium, Charlie supervised from his special platform beside me. I saw a familiar face in the audience, my mother sitting quietly in the back row, wearing the volunteer badge from her support group. She didn't try to approach me after the speech. Instead, she left a note with one of the organizers. I watch every one of your presentations. Every time Charlie alerts and prevents a seizure, I'm grateful for him and ashamed of what we did. You've turned our mistake into a movement that's saving lives. I'm proud of you, even if I don't deserve to be. Love, Mom. That evening, Charlie and I reviewed applications for the first batch of Charlie's Champions. Each story reminded me of where we started, a lonely cat in a shelter cage, a patient needing help, and the miraculous connection that could form between them. Charlie supervised the selection process from his favorite spot on my desk, occasionally pawing at applications he particularly liked. After all these years, his judgment was still impeccable. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Dad's shelter animal training program just got major funding. They're naming it after Charlie. Is that okay? I looked at Charlie, who was dozing now, his orange fur turned golden in the evening light. His vest with all its medals hung nearby, a testament to how far we'd come from that terrible day when my family thought he was just a cat. Yes, I texted back. Charlie approves. Because that was the thing about Charlie, he'd never held grudges. He'd simply done his job, day after day, proving through actions rather than words that some bonds transcend human understanding. The useless therapy cat had changed laws, inspired programs, and saved countless lives beyond my own. The hospital bills that had bankrupted my parents had bought something priceless, a revolution in how the world viewed medical alert animals. Charlie stirred from his nap to give me his evening health check. His movements slower now, but no less thorough. His orange fur had some gray around the edges, but his eyes were still bright and alert, ever watchful for signs of an oncoming seizure. "Good boy," I whispered, scratching his favorite spot. "You showed them all." He purred in response, settling into his monitoring position with practiced ease. Just another evening for Charlie, doing the job he was born to do. Sometimes the most expensive lessons teach us the most valuable truths, and sometimes the most precious things in life come with paws, purrs, and unconditional love.